Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching Madam Web, starring Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, and Isabel Merced, and Adam Scott. So, the Sony Spider-Man adjacent films have mostly ranged from enjoyable but mostly pointless to absolute disasters. While I am a fan of the Venom movies for, just a little bit of for those of them being time killers, Morbius was easily one of the worst Marvel movies I've seen in my life. And while Madam Web isn't as bad as Morbius, it still has a ton of problems that make it a so bad it's good watch at best, and outright laughable at worst. Let's get to the story, shall we? The story follows Cassandra Webb, played by Dakota Johnson. She's a paramedic who lives in New York, who works with Ben Parker, Uncle Ben, played by Adam Scott. On one particular day, when she ends up helping a person stuck on a bridge, she ends up discovering that she has the ability to see the future, which allows her to predict certain events before they can actually happen. While she's unable to save one of her coworkers, she is ultimately able to see a scary man by the name of Ezekiel Sims, played by Tahir Rahim. Basically, this man, Ezekiel Sims, is trying to kill these three girls who will eventually become three Spider Women, played by Celeste O'Connor, Isabel Merced, and Sydney Sweeney. So, Dakota Johnson has to save these three girls, have them help to take this man down, and she has to discover the full extent of her abilities as Madam Web. Now, it's very clear that Sony's films happen to focus on Spider-Man characters, even if they are particularly minor ones, who they can decently build movies off of, even if there aren't any comics to support that. With Venom and with Craven the Hunter, I understand, considering they have a lot of history to pull from. But Madam Web made like 2 or 3 appearances in the comics that I know of, and maybe if she appeared in the Spider-Verse movies to like help Miles and Peter out in those, I'd understand that part. But the story that they come up with here has a good concept but bad execution. Initially, the idea of basically a Terminator like figure going to take out spider people sounds really cool. And how they handle the visual effects for some of Ezekiel's scenes can seem kind of cool. But at the same time, the $80 million budget certainly causes some effects that look laughably bad, even by Sony Spider Man standards. Like, some of them look out of CW. That's their level of bad. On top of that, the dialogue really tries hard not to connect this to Spider Man, but also kind of leave it in. And since it goes half and half, I just want to say if you're going to make something Spider Man adjacent, either go all the way or don't even try. And this doesn't do either. Especially since there's so many of these Easter eggs to try to connect us to the Peter Parker Spider Man that we all know and love. It just feels like they're doing this more out of obligation or to prove, see, this is connected to Spider Man. Remember these guys? That sort of way. It just feels like pandering more than anything. And which is unfortunate because I like the main character. Cassandra Webb isn't nearly as old as she is in the comics, but in her Dakota Johnson form, I think she's actually kind of funny. She has this deadpan sense of humor. She seems responsible enough, and I like the way she uses her powers sometimes. Then again, time manipulation and seeing the future are kind of my favorite powers in fiction, so I'm down for kind of any version of those. So her powers themselves aren't a problem. Neither is Dakota Johnson's acting. She's doing what she can with the role, but with a very mediocre villain, horrible effects, bad pacing, and the fact that the Spider Women in general don't even get their costumes on until near the end, and the fact that they only have them on for like 3 to 5 minutes tops lets you know that they were really only doing this to out of brand recognition. It just feels like a film that could have been handled a lot better if this whole rights dispute wasn't the case, or if they got someone more talented to do it. As is, it's pretty laughable. But I did enjoy it a slightly more than Morbius, so that's got to count for something. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. See you next time.